Published 2057 EDT, 26 September 2017. Updated 0605 EDT, 27 September 2017. The curious thing about the Great British Bake Off Channel 4 is that it makes you have the sort of emotional response towards a stranger and their cooking that you would never have thought possible. How many people tuned into last night's episode imagining they would shed a tear over a lad's fancy trifle that didn't quite set? The nation has now had 5 weeks to get used to its favorite baking show moving from the BBC to Channel 4. Now halfway through the current series, and even the most diehard fan has to admit that it's still every bit as watchable as it ever was. It was pudding week, an innuendo godsend for the scriptwriters, and the competition kicked off with the bakers making a traditional steamed variety. How many people tuned into last night's episode imagining they would shed a tear over Liam left fancy trifle that didn't quite set? Kate, last week's star baker, made a Jane Austen-inspired creation that she called Mr. Darcy's steamy lake scene. It didn't take any of the judges' breath away, but it was of soggy, wet mess. There was no Hollywood handshake for Liam, the youngest contestant, although Noel Fielding did offer him a Fielding fondle as consolation. While there was outcry when Liam wasn't named last week's star baker despite some splendid creations, he put his fans through the ringer last night with his disaster of a showstopper trifle. If there's a record for world's most overflowing ashtray, then Richard Uncalled the Cleaners ITV must have broken it. Industrial cleaners who tackled his home removed more than 2,000 cigarette butts. Forget your grand trifles, these were ornate trifle terrines that took 4.5 hours to prepare. But poor Liam's was a sloppy catastrophe that reduced the normally upbeat, cheeky teenager to tears. He looked certain to be a goner until James produced a trifle as chewy as a rubber tire and got the elbow instead. Yes, the endless advert breaks are annoying, but Bake Off has settled nicely into its new home. Noel Fielding and Sandy Toksvig are looking more relaxed as a double act, just as well as I think we can give up waiting for any chemistry to develop between Paul Hollywood and Prue Leith. Prue's judging comments continue to be icy and, at times, as clunky as her costume jewelry. Naturally, she wants to set herself apart from Mary Berry, but a little more sugar wouldn't go amiss. Sweetness is not a word associated with Gemma Foster, who, in last night's episode of Dr. Foster BBC One, took more of a backseat. At the center of the action was the current Mrs. Foster, Kate Jodie Comer, who stole Simon from the deranged doctor. Noel Fielding and Sandy Toksvig are looking more relaxed as a double act. Claudia Connell says there is no chemistry between Paul Hollywood pictured and Coster Prue Leith. Needless to say, Gemma, who was supposed to have left town for a new start with her troubled son, couldn't wait to let Kate know she and Simon had had a sexual encounter. The knowledge that her husband had cheated on her turned Kate from a carefree wife into a paranoid and obsessive one. We saw Kate behaving the same way Gemma had in Series 1. She started to turn up at Simon's work without notice and check messages and pictures on his phone, while the smarmy so-and-so, just as he did with Gemma, insisted it was all in her mind. No surprises when it transpired that Gemma hadn't left town at all but was holed up at a hotel, masterminding the mayhem. It was just as well Gemma quit the GP practice, because being a vengeful lunatic has become a full-time job for her. A special mention must go to young actor Tom Taylor, who, as the Fosters' increasingly tormented teenage son, has been extraordinary. Next week's finale can't come quickly enough. We saw Kate behaving the same way Gemma had in Series 1. She started to turn up at Simon's work without notice and check messages and pictures on his phone, while the smarmy so-and-so, just as he did with Gemma, insisted it was all in her mind.